Hello again, and welcome to Conversations Live, where we connect you directly with the authors that you can't get enough of. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, the president of Conversations Book Club. And before we begin, we first want to welcome our listeners at the Pearl Public Library that are listening live in Pearl, Mississippi. We also want to thank those in New Orleans, those in Memphis, those in Chicago and Atlanta, and of course in Montgomery and our 7 chapters in Mississippi. Thank you for listening with us here again for another edition of Conversations Live. We have a very special guest that's joining us today via conference call. She is the best-selling author of 2 novels that are published through Urban Christian Lit. They are Into Each Life and Sensatiable. This is a very special occasion for us because she's also our Author of the Year for 2008 for Conversations. So please help me welcome Miss Shelia Lipsey. How you doing, Shelia?
I'm doing fine, Cyrus. Hello, everyone.
Sheila,
I just want to say that it's good to be here with you all.
Well, Sheila, we are definitely glad to have you. We thank you for taking out time out of your busy schedule. We know one of the things we're going to talk about is you have an upcoming novel that we'll be looking for later on this year, so we want to get to that. But before we get to that part, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell our listeners who Shelia Lipsey is.
Shelia Lipsey. Well, I think you've said a lot of about who I am, Cyrus, already, because my life revolves around my work, the literary work that I do as far as my books, anything that pertains to that. But I'm also a grandmother and mother of 2 adult sons. I'm a graduate of Belhaven College in Jackson, Mississippi, where I graduated magna cum laude with a degree in business administration. Other than that, I'm just an everyday person who loves to read and write and do anything that pertains to the literary world.
Well, Sheila, you have definitely had a terrific contribution to literature. Now, I mentioned the 2 books that are published through Urban Christian, but you actually have works that you released before that you self-published. Tell our listeners about those books.
Before signing on with Urban Books, I did not let not having a traditional contract with a publisher stop me from pursuing what I really wanted to do. I knew that I had books in me, and I knew that I was able to do it. So my first book that I self-published, it is entitled Always, Now, and Forever. Mm-hmm. Always, Now, and Forever is an inspirational romance, sort of semi-autobiographical, but it is my very first book that was released July 2000, and it still sells basically on Amazon. And then my second book is a nonfiction book entitled A Christian's Perspective, Journey Through Grief, and that book was released July 2002 under Brentwood Christian Press. I do plan to release some more nonfiction books, probably under the umbrella of A Christian's Perspective. But those are the 2 books that I have completed before I got the contract.
Okay, so Sheila, with 4 books under your belt and with more on the way, what would you say drives you as an author?
Well, like I just said earlier, it's been a dream of mine. I think every person is endowed with something special, a special gift or talent. And it just so happened that I found joy always, even in school, in writing. Now, at first I didn't think that I would actually become a writer as far as publishing a book. But I knew that I could write, and I loved to do it at every opportunity. So as time went on, and I began to read more, and then really when African Americans began to come out with books, that even weighed heavily on me too. Not that I didn't think that I could do it before then, but it's just that something weighed on me to go on and pursue my dreams while I had an opportunity to do so.
Mm. Well, Sheila, one of the things that is fascinating about you is that you write books that are so easy to relate to. I know in a time where the urban lit or street lit is something that is very popular, or the hip-hop fiction as it's called, you have managed to transcend different races, and also different types of readers, male and female, with your novels, especially Into Each Life and Sensatiable. My question to you is, how do you remain relevant? I mean, with so many things that are out there that are in competition with your style of writing, how do you as an author remain relevant in the field?
Well, I believe it's because I know who I am and I know what I am not. And so in knowing those 2 things, I'm able to stick to what I believe people really want to read about and even hear about. And most of the time, people want to be able to relate to what they read or even what they see and hear. It has to be done on a personal level. Now, that's not to say that you can't read some other genre and be pleased with it or enjoy it, because you can. But still, when a person is able to pick up a book and relate it to something in their life, or perhaps they know someone like that or that's experienced certain things, I believe that keeps me going and writing in the area that I write in, because I want everything that I do to be real life, where it's not far-fetched or unbelievable, where people can grasp it.
I know you have a saying that I've heard you say sometime. In fact, I've even seen you write it, that you write perfect stories about imperfect people.
About imperfect people,
right?
Yes.
And that is
basically putting it in a nutshell, because that's what it is. Because as we know, even with the book Into Each Life, that was one of the reasons the title stood out for me. Into each life, because in everybody's life there's something that we experience, and it's always it's not always good, it's not always sunshine and roses. It's a mixture of everything as we go along life's journey. So the perfect stories about imperfect people encompasses that, as well as each of my books. Hopefully they'll continue to encompass something about real life issues.
You know, speaking of real life issues, one of the things that I think you and I have had the privilege of working together on several occasions here in Mississippi, and recently you actually helped us debut our chapter in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yes.
One of the things that has always intrigued me about people is that we are very much fad-driven, meaning that we seem to latch on to the next big thing, or the thing that's popular, the thing that's fresh. I want to talk a little bit about your book, Sensatiable. One of the things that I think helped that story to reach a larger audience, in my opinion, was the fact that it focused on a younger character who was faced with choices that both young and old could deal with. You mentioned something about the title of Into Each Life, though, how when it came to you. Tell us about Sensatiable, how that title came to you, and then how the story developed.
Okay. Before I write anything, I'm always searching for a title. I don't know why, but that's how I start my book. It has to have a title. I'm not sure what the story is going to be about, who the characters are going to encompass or anything, but the title comes. And with my debut novel with Kingston, then the perfect title, of course, came to me, Into Each Life. Well, from Into Each Life, I moved to Sensatiable. And Sensatiable came to me as a result of just thinking about how sometimes we overindulge in things. Well, not sometimes, a lot of times. And it can be a variety of things, from maybe we overindulge in shopping, or we overindulge in eating, or we overindulge in things basically that may be good initially, but eventually they consume us and it turns into something that's not so good. So I took the portion of the title Insatiable, which means overdoing. And then I thought about sin. Well, sin, in my opinion, is exactly the same thing, because when sin is in our lives, then it sometimes, or most of the time, starts off looking good,